Before the chair became something ordinary under office desks, around dinner tables, in classrooms, on porches, in waiting rooms, and beside beds, it was something much more revealing, a symbol of who was allowed to rest, who was allowed to rule, and who was expected to remain standing. Long before the chair became common furniture, it often belonged to power. Kings sat on thrones, bishops sat in sacred seats, rulers, judges, and household heads claimed places that others could not. And over time, this simple object changed in a way that quietly reshaped daily life. Because the history of the chair is not only the story of furniture, it is the story of authority, comfort, design, labor, and the long human journey from status to ordinary rest. Chairs are among the most ancient forms of furniture, with surviving traditions reaching back to Egypt's third dynasty, while later Greek, Roman, medieval, and modern forms transformed both meaning and design. Before the chair became common, sitting itself was unequal. That is where the real story begins. Today, a chair feels so ordinary that most people barely notice it. We sit to eat, work, wait, read, learn, travel, and recover. But in many earlier societies, chairs were not everyday objects for everyone. Stools, benches, platforms, mats, and the floor were more common for ordinary use, while the chair often carried a special social meaning. That is what makes its history so human. The chair was never only about posture, it was about position. And that position could mean power. Britannica notes that the chair is one of the most ancient forms of furniture, dating back to the third dynasty of ancient Egypt, around 2650 to 2575 BCE. Egyptian furniture history also shows that beds, stools, throne chairs, and boxes were among the chief furniture forms, and surviving chairs from Egypt demonstrate remarkable carpentry and careful design. The Met's Egyptian chairs show mortise and tenon joinery, pegs, and restored mesh seats modeled on ancient examples, which tells us something important. Early chairs were not crude beginnings waiting to become real furniture later. They were already sophisticated objects, both functional and symbolic. That was the first transformation of the chair. It turned sitting into hierarchy. A chair lifts the body. It sets one person apart from the ground and often apart from others. In early civilizations that mattered. A throne was not just a seat, it was a visible declaration of rank. The person in the chair was often the one who judged, commanded, received, or ruled. That is why the chair appears so often in political and sacred imagery. It did not merely support the body. It supported authority, and that meaning survived for a very long time. In the Greek world, the chair also became a design achievement. Britannica describes the ancient Greek klismos as one of the most elegant chair forms, perfected by the 5th century BCE, with curving splayed legs and a curved back designed to fit the body. That detail matters because it shows another shift in the chair's story. The chair was no longer only a symbol of rank, it was becoming an object of human-centered design. Beauty, proportion, and comfort began to matter together. A chair could now express not just power, but taste. Then came Rome, and the chair deepened its connection to power again. Britannica notes that the Roman cathedra was a heavier chair derived from the Greek klismos, and that the curule chair was reserved for the highest government dignitaries, serving as a seat of judgment. Those examples reveal something striking. The chair had become institutional. It was tied not just to wealth, but to office. To sit in a certain chair was to hold a certain role. Even the word cathedra later gave rise to the word cathedral, reflecting the bishop's official chair in the principal church of a diocese. In other words, the chair was so closely tied to authority that it shaped religious language itself. And maybe that is the hidden twist in the early history of the chair. It was never just furniture. It was permission. Permission to rest above the ground. Permission to be seen. Permission to judge, to rule, to preside, to be addressed. For a very long time, the chair marked difference more than comfort. It drew a line between the ordinary and the elevated. But that line did not stay fixed forever. As furniture traditions evolved through the medieval and early modern periods, chairs gradually spread more widely, though they still often retained prestige. Britannica notes that in the 16th century, many European chairs began to be upholstered over padding and decorated with elaborate wood carving. That signals another important transformation. The chair was becoming richer in material culture, more domestic in some settings, more expressive of fashion, wealth, and craftsmanship. It moved beyond pure authority into the language of household status and personal taste. And once fashion enters furniture, the story changes again, because now the chair is no longer only about who you are. It is also about how you want to live. A padded chair says something different from a ceremonial one. It suggests duration, leisure, conversation, dining, reflection. It imagines the seated body as something to be accommodated rather than merely displayed. The more the chair enters domestic life, the more it becomes intimate. It moves from throne rooms and public symbolism into meals, reading, sewing, waiting, and private thought. Still, for most of history, a well-made chair remained labor-intensive. It required wood, joinery, carving, weaving, or upholstery. A chair was shaped by craft. That is why surviving historical examples are often so revealing. They preserve not only design, but work. Egyptian examples show skilled joinery. Greek forms reveal sophisticated proportions. Roman and later European chairs reveal how furniture can carry politics and style at once. A chair is one of the clearest ways to see how daily life and social order meet in material form. Then came one of the biggest changes in chair history: industrial production. By the modern era, the chair could increasingly be manufactured at scale, rather than only crafted one at a time. One famous chapter in that transformation is bentwood furniture. Smithsonian collections include bentwood chairs produced by Thonet brothers in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, reflecting a design and production method that helped make chair manufacturing more repeatable and commercially widespread. Even without telling the whole industrial story through one company, the broader point is clear. Once chairs could be produced more efficiently, they stopped being exceptional objects and became ordinary companions of modern life. That was the chair's great democratic shift. It stopped belonging mainly to power and started belonging to routine. Dining chairs, school chairs, office chairs, theater chairs, cafe chairs, waiting room chairs, train station chairs, factory chairs, hospital chairs. The chair multiplied because modern life multiplied situations in which the body was expected to pause, work, or remain in place. The chair became infrastructure for everyday civilization, and that changed more than comfort. It changed behavior. Once chairs fill a society, they begin organizing the body. They tell people where to sit, how long to stay, how to face others, how to work, how to listen, how to belong in a room. A chair can create equality, as around a table. It can create hierarchy, as at the front of a classroom. It can signal hospitality, bureaucracy, punishment, rest, or formality. Few objects shape social space so quietly, and maybe that is why the chair still feels strangely powerful even now. A single chair in an empty room can suggest absence. A grandmother's chair can hold memory. An office chair can symbolize modern labor. A classroom chair can recall discipline and childhood. A rocking chair can feel like patience. A throne still means authority. Even today, the emotional meaning of chairs has never fully disappeared. We may live in a world where chairs are common, but they still carry traces of their older lives. They remember status. They remember waiting. They remember care. They remember who was invited to sit and who was not. That emotional closeness may be the chair's most overlooked quality. Unlike monumental inventions, the chair works at body level. It meets fatigue directly. It receives weight. It supports aging knees, tired backs, private conversations, meals, grief, prayer, boredom, study, recovery, and rest. The chair matters because human life contains so much sitting, and sitting contains so much feeling. And of course, chair design kept evolving. Modern furniture history includes experiments in bentwood, tubular steel, molded plywood, ergonomics, and contemporary materials, but the deeper human question remained unchanged. What does it mean to support a body well? That is the same question hidden, in different ways, behind ancient Egyptian craftsmanship, Greek elegance, Roman authority, upholstered domestic comfort, and industrial everyday seating. The materials changed, the human need did not. And maybe that is the final lesson. The history of the chair is not really about legs, backs, arms, or upholstery. It is about who gets to rest. It is about who gets to sit above the ground, who gets to preside, who gets to belong, and eventually, how ordinary people came to inherit an object once more closely associated with status and ceremony. The chair began as a marker of difference. Over time, It became a companion of ordinary life. That is a quiet revolution. So when you look at a chair now, do not see only wood, metal, fabric, or plastic. See the Egyptian chair with animal-shaped legs. See the elegant Greek klismos shaped to the body. See the Roman curule chair of office and judgment. See the bishop's cathedra. See the upholstered chairs of early modern Europe. See the bentwood chair entering modern mass life. See the school chair, the kitchen chair, the waiting chair, the bedside chair, the lonely chair in the corner of a room after everyone has gone. See the long history of power slowly becoming comfort. Because the history of the chair is, in the end, not just the history of furniture. It is the story of how human beings turn status into support, and support into part of everyday life. And maybe that is why the chair still matters. Not because it is dramatic, but because it quietly holds so much of being human. If you stayed until the end, then maybe a chair no longer feels like just another object in the room. Maybe it feels more like memory, status, comfort, waiting, or one of those quiet inventions that shaped human life without demanding attention. So, I'd love to hear from you. When you think about a chair, what does it mean to you most? Rest, authority, home, nostalgia, or something deeper? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more storytelling videos about the ordinary objects and quiet designs that changed human history.